World Regions Geography 110, South Asia, Part 5. Religion defines South Asia. So when you look at this, you have Afghanistan and Pakistan, and a small part of India here is Muslim, and you also see down in this region some pockets of Muslim population. And then up in here, you see some Buddhists, Nepal, Kathmandu, up here in Bhutan, down here on the edge of Bangladesh, you see some Buddhists, and right up here by the Khyber Pass, some Buddhists, and large areas of Christianity scattered around, mostly on the coast, but a little bit inland here. And then Jainism, another religion, it's down here in Gujarat. And then you have Sikhism up here. And then you have tribal religions up in this region and right over in here. The Maldives is largely Muslim, and Sri Lanka is largely Buddhist. So Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Bangladesh are your predominant Muslim countries in the region. Jainism, Sikhism, and Buddhism have sizable minorities and are somewhat regionally centered. The other thing about those religions is even though on the surface India does not discriminate against other religions, there have been considerable conflict, particularly between Sikhs. The Sikhs are up in this region here. Sikhs and Hindus, very sizable conflicts. India also contains sizable Christian and Muslim populations throughout the country, so they're kind of scattered around. Women's status and dowry murders. This is an issue. It goes back to the status of women. That's why I put that as the primary item. Women are expected to serve a subservient role in traditional society in South Asia. A girl's family is expected to pay a dowry to the groom's family, and the higher status or wealthier the groom's family is, the more the dowry is supposed to be. In a recent year, 8,223 women died from a practice where the groom and or his family harass or attacks the woman to extract additional dowry from her family. And though this practice is outlawed, it goes largely unprosecuted. And you can see, even though it is a small number, it's still substantial, and it's in the areas Indus Valley, some of the coastal regions, Rajasthan. I think it's an interesting fact, and I think it's something that speaks to the status of women and how they're viewed. If you've seen any recent articles about the practice of raping women, especially women that are by themselves, I wouldn't, if I was a woman, I wouldn't probably feel real comfortable traveling by myself in India. Demographics and population density. So the map at the right shows the population distribution, and it's densest right here. Now this is part of Pakistan, and here's the Indus River flowing there, and so this super dense population all along the Indus River Valley and into the delta, which is Bangladesh is basically the delta. And then along the coastal area, and then you see some large cities here and there along here, but the coastal area largely has a very dense. I mean, even though this is the Deccan Plain here, and this is still fairly dense if you look at it, 250 to 500 people per square kilometer, which that's maybe 1,000 yards by 1,000 yards. So think about that. The area of the Deccan Plain is densely populated. Pakistan and regions in the Himalayas are much less dense. Part of that is because they're more deserty. These are more isolated. But even here in the Himalayas here, you see, even along here in the foothills, is very dense population. Here's some population pyramids. And the reason these are important is shows you the different distribution of population, and so you can get an idea of what the population is doing. If you look here, take Sri Lanka, you see it coming down kind of natural here, and then it curves in a little bit, and then it balloons out a little bit. That's these people having children. That's why it's ballooning out, but it's headed back in, so it's following this, and so what you're going to see is a fairly stable population, not growing. Probably will eventually start to shrink. On the other hand, you look at Afghanistan, and it is simply a curve straight on out, which means you have a population with a really high birth rate, and the population is likely to be growing for some time. I mean, think about as this population ages up into here, it's going to continue to spread out. Now, India is on the other hand, it is starting to, the birth rate is starting to drop. You can see it here. One of the things you notice is there's probably a little bit of female infanticide in India, because you see there's a fair percentage higher of males than females. But the population is starting to stabilize, though it's still growing. South Asian fertility rates, and this is fertility rates are the births per woman, per female, not per couple. So if a woman and her has 2.1, that's 2.1 to the population is replacement. That replaces the existing population, and 2.5 would give you a little bit of growth. If you're here in this 1.7 to 2, your population in those regions are going to be shrinking. 2.6 to 3 or 3.1 or greater, the population is going to be growing rapidly. I mean, think about 3.1. If you have 500 males and 500 females, this 3.1 means you're going to have an additional 500 people, so the population is growing at about almost 50% rate. So it's really growing pretty rapidly here in this region here and over here. Now, on the other hand, this region up here in Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Punjab, all of this southern region population is really starting to shrink. Not substantially, but a little bit. And here, it's basically replacement. I think that's overall the population is still growing a little bit, but you can see the differences. India's population is expected to exceed China's by 2050. Now this is an interesting slide, and just it's here more for information. If this is a slide of foreign-born students, college students, whose status after 5 years. So after 5 years after they first got their student visa, what are they doing? Are they going back? China's the largest sender, as you would expect. The country has the highest percentage remaining in the U.S. 92% of Chinese students who come here to go to college stay in the United States after 5 years. India is at 81% of the students they send here, but they send here quite a bit less. I mean, about 25% as much. South Korea, interestingly, sends more students, but most go back. Only 41% stay. And I think these numbers are reflective of the economic and environmental issues that students from these regions experience when they go home. So India's third highest sending country, second highest in remaining in the U.S. after 5 years. So if you look at it, if you have foreign students coming, Chinese and Indian students are more likely to have the greatest long-term impact on the U.S. economy because they remain here longer. They may never go back. Future geographies. And this is a contrast. You know, a lot of times we think of India as the call centers and tech centers. That's what you're seeing right there. But here's the other reality. 400 million people live this lifestyle in India. And I think that's a substantial. This man here is a rag picker. He's probably of a very low, untouchable caste. So I think, you know, there's the two contrasts of South Asia. India's population pyramid projections for 25th, high constant birth rate, more males than females. You see there's quite a bit more males than females. Birth rate slowing somewhat. And the birth rate is dependent on the status of women and their access to birth controls. So what you're seeing here, this is telling us that there's probably an increase, a recent increase in the status of women, which is allowing them to make more choices about birth control. The economy, China and India. I don't see India overtaking the Chinese economy. Growth rate is slowing, so it is likely to be somewhat lower than these projections, but India is unlikely to overtake China in the near future. The caste system still leaves many outside the opportunities system, with over 400 million earning less than $1 per day. And there's huge infrastructure needs, particularly in the areas of energy production and education in India.